Well, Tank is gone. You don't want to come, Tank Tank? Come on. Up. No. It's her head. She doesn't want to come. You can go. Go on. Bye-bye. You can come up here. Bubba is still here, though. See? She loves being here, but she doesn't like to show her head. Our next story will be Curious George by H.A. Ray. Curious George. You like Curious George? You want to sit and listen? Or you want to go? All right. Let's start with Curious George. This is George. He lived in Africa. He was a good little monkey and always very curious. One day, George saw a man. He had on a large yellow straw hat. The man saw George too. What a nice little monkey, he thought. I would like to take him home with me. He put his hat on the ground, and of course, George was curious. He came down from a tree to look at the large yellow hat. The hat had been on the man's head. George thought it would be nice to have it on his own head. He picked it up and put it on. The hat covered George's head. He couldn't see. The man picked him up quickly and popped him into a bag. George was caught. The man with the big yellow hat put George into a little boat, and a sailor to row them both across the water to a big ship. George was sad, but he was still a little curious. On the big ship, things began to happen. The man took off the bag. George sat on the little stool, and the man said, George, I am going to take you to a big zoo in a big city. You will like it there. Now run along and play, but don't get into trouble. George promised to be good, but it is easy for little monkeys to forget. On the deck, he found some seagulls. He wondered how they could fly. He was very curious. Finally, he had to try. It looked easy, but... Oh, what happened? First this, and then this. Where is George? The sailor looked and looked. At last, they saw him struggling in the water and almost all tired out. Man overboard! The sailors cried as they threw him a life belt. George caught it and held on. At last, he was safe on board. After that, George was more careful to be a good monkey, until at last the long trip was over. George said goodbye to the kind sailors, and he and the man with the yellow hat walked off the ship onto the shore and on into the city to the man's house. After a good meal and a good pipe, George felt very tired. You didn't think monkey can smoke, huh? George can. He's a special monkey. He smokes. He crawled into bed and fell asleep at once. He's so cute. The next morning, the man telephoned the zoo. George watched him. He was fascinated. Then the man went away. George was curious. He wanted to telephone too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. What fun! Did you notice the telephone? Look at the telephone. We don't have those telephones anymore. We have cell phones now. Those were the good old days where you rotate the phone using each number. It's pretty cool, huh? Ding-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling. George has telephoned the fire station. Oh no! The firemen rushed to the telephone. Hello, hello, they said. But there was no answer because George can't talk. He's a monkey. Then they looked for the signal on the big map that showed where the telephone call had come from. They didn't know it was George. They thought it was a real fire. Hurry, hurry, hurry! The firemen jumped onto the fire engines and onto the hook and ladders. Ding dong, ding dong, everyone out of the way. Hurry, hurry, hurry! The firemen rushed into the house. They opened the door. No fire! Only a naughty little monkey. Oh, catch him, they cried. George tried to run away. He almost did, but he got caught in the telephone wire. And a thin fireman caught one arm and the fat fireman caught the other. You fool the fire department, they said. We will have to shut you up where you can't do any more harm. They took him away and shut him in a prison. Oh no. Now George is in prison. George wanted to get out. He climbed up through the window to try the bars. Just then the watchman came in. He got on the wooden bed to catch George, but he was too big and heavy. The bed tipped up. The watchman fell over, and quick as lightning, George ran out through the open door. He hurried through the building and out onto the roof, and then he was lucky to be a monkey. Out he walked on the telephone wires, quickly and quietly over the guard's head. George walked away. He was free. Down in the street, outside the prison wall, stood a balloon man. A little girl bought a balloon for her brother. George watched. He was curious again. He felt he must have a bright red balloon. He reached over and tried to help himself. But instead of one balloon, the whole bunch broke loose. And in an instant, the wind whisked them all away. And with them went George, holding tight with both hands. Up, up he sailed, higher and higher. The houses looked like little toy houses and the people like dolls. George was frightened. He held on very tight. At first, the wind blew in great gusts. Then it quieted. Finally, it stopped blowing altogether. George was very tired. Down, down he went. Bump! On to the top of a traffic light. Everyone was surprised. The traffic got all mixed up. George didn't know what to do. And then he heard someone called, George! He looked down and saw his friend, the man with the big yellow hat. George was very happy. The man was happy too. George slid down the post and the man with the big yellow hat put him under his arm. Then he paid the balloon man for all the balloons, and then George and the man climbed into the car, and at last, away they went to the zoo. What a nice place for George to live. The end. Welcome back, boys and girls. You know, when you grow up, it's natural to be curious about what's in that box, what's in that medicine bottle your parents take, and what's in that machine. It's natural to be curious, you know, to be interested and to be adventurous. There's nothing wrong with that. But always be careful. Not all things are meant to be explored, and not all places need to be opened up or go into. Something is hazardous for you. And just like George, he likes to get into mischief. And I know that's natural. You would like to do some of the things George does, but you can get into a lot of trouble. I've heard a lot of bad stories about children getting locked up in suitcases and boxes and things like that. They tried to go in there and play and couldn't get out. So it's natural to be curious about new things and colorful things, but be very careful. Always let your parents know what you are doing. Don't do things without asking them first. Don't be like George, who got in all kinds of trouble. It will cause many people headaches. It's good to be adventurous. There's a time or a place for everything. And be mindful of what your parents tell you. Hey, how often have your parents called you a monkey because you constantly jump around and doing all this and that? Well, thank you, boys and girls, for listening to me. I hope you will have a great day. It is a beautiful day outside. And by the way, I'm here visiting my mom for the holiday and my sister. And I hope you're visiting too, your family from a different state, and have a fun and safe trip, okay? If you do, I will see you on the next adventure.